Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. One of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose, as long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. This is your host, Sean, and in today's episode, we are going to talk about the Bulls and crybaby LeBron. Blackhawks sitting out waiting for the Ducks series to start. The Bears have Vic Fangio finally speaking, and the Cubs and White Sox having a little bit of May showers going on. So that's all on this episode. But before we start, as usual, we're going to mention our sponsors. First is the Rockford Ice Hogs. After losing games 1 and 2 in Grand Rapids, the Ice Hawks return to the BMO for games 3 through 5, trailing 0-2 in this best-of-7 Western Conference semifinal series against Grand Rapids. Grand Rapids, if you don't know, is the minor league team for Detroit. So, boo, 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 boo. So the next 3 games, you need to go on and cheer on the Rockford Ice Hogs. Those 3 games will be in Rockford, only 90 minutes from city limits. Fun for the whole family, and you get to cheer on the Blackhawks minor league team, the Rockford Ice Hogs, against the hated Detroit Red Wings minor league team, Grand Rapids Griffins. The games are Wednesday, May 13th at 7 p.m., Friday, May 15th versus Grand Rapids at 7 p.m. and Sunday, May 17th against Grand Rapids, and that's at 4 p.m. So, like I said, fun for the whole family, only 90 minutes away. Visit the Rockford Ice Hogs at icehogs.com. Our next sponsor, the show is also brought to you by audible.com. Head on over to audibletrial.com/Swerski Sports and get one of these books for absolutely free. Blood on the Horns, The Long Strange Ride of Michael Jordan's Chicago Bulls. Blood on the Horns details the infighting and conflict between Jordan, Phil Jackson, Scottie Pippen, Jerry Krause, and Jerry Reinsdorf. Or Turning the Black Sox White, The Misunderstood Legacy of Charles A. Comiskey. Tim Hornbaker not only tells the full story of Comiskey's incredible life and the sport at the time, he also debunks the Black Sox controversy. Check out any one of these or 180,000 other titles for absolutely free by going to audibletrial.com/Swerski Sports. That's SWERSKI Sports. Or you can go to our website at swerskisports.com and click on the banner. So let's talk about the Bulls. The Bulls. This series is going much more competitively than I had really expected. I mean, honestly, there's people out there that say, well, the Bulls will win, or the Bulls are going to get blown out. But really, realistically thinking, they have not been able to get over this LeBron James hurdle. It's been a nightmare. They just haven't been able to get past it. Honestly, I am starting to understand what it was like to be a Knicks fan in the 90s. No matter what you did, you couldn't get past Michael Jordan. And it's so frustrating. It doesn't matter how good of a team you put together. They've got LeBron James. And as much as a big crybaby he is, and LeBron James is a big crybaby. Oh my God, is he a crybaby? It's ridiculous. But regardless, he's the best player in the NBA. Hands down. And what can you do about it? I mean, the Bulls have been holding strong even without Paul Gasol. It was, in my opinion, it was that cold streak they went on in the second quarter that really did them in. For whatever happened at the end of the game with the officiating, and they shouldn't have had. The Cavaliers should not have been allowed to have that free timeout. There should have been a technical. on Paul Ball Cop, coach of the Cavaliers, for calling a timeout that he didn't have. That should have been a technical and the ball per the rule. But magically nobody saw it because the league can't have LeBron losing to the Bulls. And just I don't know how LeBron hit that shot. It's just a lot of frustration. And but ultimately, one play doesn't cause the whole game. And the Bulls' collapse in the second quarter really did them in. The officiating has not been good. In the NBA, if you rank the four major sports, the NHL clearly has the best officiating, then NFL, then baseball, and way down below is the NBA. The NBA is the worst officiated league in sports. It's terrible. If you're an NBA official, you're terrible at your job. Period. I don't care who you are. You're terrible at your job. And between what they call traveling and what they call fouls and free throw discrepancy, the Bulls they will not let them go to the line. It's ridiculous. So you have the bad blown calls at the end of the game. You have the free throw discrepancy during the game. The Bulls' cold streak in the second quarter. It all sums up to a best-of-3 series now because it's 2-2 and a best-of-7. Let's throw it all out the window and best-of-3 with the Cavaliers regaining home court advantage. But the one good news is nobody in this series has won back-to-back games. Bulls won Game 1, Cavs won Game 2, Bulls won Game 3, Cavs won Game 4. And even though that goes home court advantage for the Cavaliers, if you go alternating games, that works for the Bulls. In a Game 7. What else can we say about it? Jimmy Butler has done a phenomenal job guarding LeBron James. I mean, really, he's getting help when he drives, but he's really contesting everything, and he is making it really hard for LeBron James to score points. And LeBron James is getting points. LeBron James is getting rebounds. LeBron James is getting assists. But LeBron James is having to work really darn hard to get those points. And that's all thanks to Jimmy Butler. So where would you be without Jimmy Butler in this series? And honestly, you're not going to be in a good place. There's that. And speaking of Jimmy Butler, I was reading a report today that apparently the Lakers are gearing up to offer a max contract to Jimmy Buckets, which, if I'm not mistaken, I believe the Bulls said they're going to offer him a max contract as well. So the Bulls' offer should be better. You can get to stay in Chicago, get more years, more money. But it's still, I don't like the idea that there's other teams out there willing to throw a lot of money at Jimmy Butler. I love Jimmy Butler. He's been the best player for the Bulls the last 2 years on total. But still, you just don't want to get yourself in another pickle with giving a guy a long-term money and locking him in like that. But that's for Gar and Pax to figure out about what you're going to do with salary cap, because you're going to have Derek figure out what you're going to have to do with Derek. You have to figure out what you're going to do with Joe. Joe fighting with LeBron. I love it. If you didn't like Joe and you're Chicagoan before that, him fighting with LeBron is pure gold. And if you're a little kid listening to this, earmuffs. Earmuffs. I normally don't swear on the show, but during Game 3 is LeBron and Joe got into a little bit of a tiff after LeBron scored on Joe, and he was taunting him, and Joe yelled back, "Fuck you, you're still a bitch." And both got technicals, and LeBron, after the game, in his typical crybaby crying fashion, said, you really crossed the line. I'm a husband and a father. If that's all it takes to cross LeBron James' line, then he's a little baby. Like, that's it. I hear worse than that doing pickup games at the Y. That's ridiculous. That's what you hear people saying on the street. You hear that if you drive on the Kennedy any day of the week. And so it's ridiculous. And LeBron's just a big baby. I'm tired of talking about him, but until the Bulls beat them in this 7-game then we're just going to have to keep talking about his dumb face. Couple more Bulls notes is we're getting dangerously close to figuring out what Garpax's plan for Tom Thibodeau is. And honestly, I haven't made up my mind. I mean, I keep weighing it, and who's going to be a better coach than Thibodeau? And on one hand, you say that. On the other hand, you say maybe it's just time for a change because you haven't got over that hurdle, and maybe you need to put in somebody new that's not going to burn out your players. Tibbs has had a good long run, and I don't know how many teams would give Thibodeau this long of a run. I mean, there's a reason that he spent so long as an assistant and didn't get a chance as an NBA head coach. And I think we're starting to figure out what it is he's really stubborn and a little difficult to get along with, and he burns through his players. It's a difficult situation because Garpax. I'm trying to weigh my words because I don't think they're the best GM combo that there is. But they have given you a really good, deep team. There's a lot of talent, a lot of deepness of this team, and Thibodeau refuses to go past the shallow end of the pool per se. He's only willing to go to the players he's comfortable with. And if you think about it, if there hadn't been injuries, do you think Jimmy Butler would have ever got the chance? If they would have kept Luol Deng, would Jimmy Buckets have gotten a chance? No. He rode Luol Deng, and now he's riding Jimmy Butler. And he had to get comfortable with Jimmy Butler, and he realized he liked Jimmy Butler. Nikolai Mirotic, he only got some time because there was injuries, and he did really well during his time. And Doug McDermott's not getting time. Tony Snell is barely getting time. But a guy who doesn't deserve time, like Kirk Heinrich, he's getting time. Joe, who's clearly bothered by some sort of injury, is getting all kinds of time. It's really hard. You have to, if you're Thibodeau, you have to trust that your front office gave you a good team and a deep team and something to work with and actually play those guys. You're not going to beat the Cavaliers by being better than LeBron James. You're going to have to beat them by going 7 or full bench deep. You are going to have to go. You're going to have to keep throwing fresh guys at them. You've got Kyrie Irving, who's not 100%, and who knows if he's going to play in Game 5. But you're going to have to keep throwing guys at them. You make LeBron beat your whole deep team. And that's where Tom Thibodeau is really frustrating because he refuses to do that. He refuses to use these other guys. And it's really infuriating. But he's done so well. And look at what he did when the wheels fell off and Derrick Rose was injured. He did so much with so little. So he's a guy that gets the most out of a little bit, but he can't get the most out of when you give him more because he's just not willing to come out of his comfort zone on things. So maybe you bring in a new style of head coach that's going to be a little more willing to work with what you got and work within your frame of people that you brought in to be on this organization to play. But the one thing is, if you do get rid of Thibodeau, you got to be careful of what you wish for, is because he's going to get a job somewhere, and whatever team he goes to, if they're a team you have to play a lot, he's going to come after you, and he's going to really put pressure on you because his teams don't quit. Well, this year a little bit, but when the chips are down, Tibbs rides those guys and makes them play hard. So it's a tough decision, and unless I don't see any way that he comes back unless they beat the Cavaliers, and that might not even save him. So there's that. So what do I think they need the keys for them to win 2 of these next 3 games? That's the key. Is There's the ones that I think they can do, and the ones that I don't know if they can do. As far as the ones that they can do is rebound. They have to keep Cleveland off the boards, especially those offensive boards. They can't keep giving second chances. They've got to attack LeBron James, see if they can get him in any sort of foul trouble at all. I don't know if that happens, but you've at least got to attack him. Attack Kyrie Irving. He's not 100%. Don't let him just stand and spot and shoot. Drive at him, make him move, make him feel uncomfortable. So he's either going to foul you, or he's going to say I can't play, or he's going to leave you open, and they're going to have to bring in double team and help. So that's where Derek comes in. He's going to have to take Kyrie to the hole. Aaron Brooks has got to get involved. He's got to be an offensive presence. Dunleavy's got to start knocking down shots. Mirotic has to knock down shots. Taj has to start rebounding better. They're going to have to. They're going to ride on LeBron James really hard in Game 5. Jimmy Butler's going to have to keep doing what he's doing, and they're going to have to bring him a little more help so he doesn't come in all the way and put up a layup. He's got to drive him hard outside and have somebody come over, so he's got to spot up and shoot. And don't let him drive to where he kicks it out to the 3-point guys, because even those injured guys are still going to be able to shoot. And you got to keep the pressure on. I think they're going to have to go to their bench. I think they're going to have to do that. You've got Joe that's clearly bothered by something. You don't know what sort of pain level that Derrick Rose is going to play like. Is he going to play like the second game of the series where he didn't play very well? Or is he going to play like the Game 3 where he was lights out? So you don't know what you're going to get. So you got to go deep. You got to keep putting the pressure on those guys. You got to keep driving the lane. You got to get them in foul trouble. High percentage shots. I mean, it's not really a secret. This is a wounded team in the Cleveland Cavaliers. This is your best chance to beat them. You're not gonna come and lose Game 5 and then win Game 6 and 7. I don't think. I think winner of Game 5 is the team that takes it. And you can't be those inconsistent Bulls that come out one game look great, one game look bad. You got to start putting some consistency together. This is the time. They've given all the money to these players. You gotta have it pay off now. I think it does go. The predictor in me, the Nostradamus, the Seanstradamus. I'm going to say it goes Game 7, and Cleveland routs them in Game 7. That's my prediction. I think the Bulls win a squeaker in Game 6 to eke out the series, or to stretch out the series, but I don't see it going past that. So let me know what your thoughts are. You guys have been quiet about the Bulls in emails, so definitely hit us up at swerskisports.com, on Twitter at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports. Give me your Bulls thoughts. We'll quickly go to the Blackhawks because there's not much. They've been sitting idly by, waiting for their next opponent, which is going to be the Anaheim Ducks, which I think we all knew. We all knew it was going to be Anaheim. They played with Calgary a little bit, and Calgary's a good team. I think I'm rather steep with the Ducks. Ducks are a much more talented team, and they're a bigger threat. But the Hawks struggle a little bit with Calgary. Looking at this series is Roosevelt is definitely not playing. If you follow me on Twitter, I shouted out that what happened with his ankle or his injury. It definitely looked like a broken ankle, and it's what it turned out to be. So he's got a broken ankle, and he's not going to be in there. So he's going to be replaced by David Rundblatt, which is not surprising because that is the next guy that Quenneville is somewhat comfortable with. And Coach Q is a lot like Tibbs, where there's certain guys, and if you're not one of his guys, he's not going to play you. You're not going to find your minutes. You're going to be easily in the doghouse. Rundblatt is the guy who's the least in his doghouse out of those defensemen. the extra defenseman. So it's going to be Rundblad getting the first crack. And the one good thing is that he's a lot faster and better skater at this point in his career than Michael Roosevelt, and with the speed of the Ducks, might be a little better because Roosevelt doesn't have the speed he once did. And it really showed last year against the LA Kings, and hopefully Rundblad's able to at least keep up with skating-wise. And the one other quick thing I wanted to mention is I went back and looked at the schedule. The Blackhawks played the Ducks 3 times during the regular season. They played them on October 28th and lost 1-0. And to give you a context of how they were playing, that was a really bad stretch for the Blackhawks at that time. It was a really bad stretch. During that stretch, they were 2-5, and they lost some clunkers in there. So they'd only won 2 out of 7 games during that stretch, and one of the games they won was in a shootout. So really, they were 1-5-1 in the well. Take that back. I sound stupid. They won 2, but one was in a shootout. They didn't play well in that stretch, and they only gave up the 1 goal to Anaheim. They just didn't score. But then let's fast forward 1 month to 11/28, and the Blackhawks went to Anaheim and beat them 4-1. Completely dominated that game. And then January 30th, they played them again and won 4-1. So the Anaheim Ducks are only averaging 1 goal a game against the Blackhawks, whereas the Blackhawks are averaging nearly 3 goals a game. So as good as Anaheim is, I think it plays very well to the strengths of the Blackhawks. I think the Blackhawks are going to win this series in 6 games. And they are going to be heading to another Stanley Cup final. I don't know who they'll be playing because the Eastern Conference has been weird. A couple of days ago, you would have easily sworn it was going to be you thought it was either going to be Lightning or the Capitals, because both of those had they put Montreal and the Rangers respectively on the verge of elimination, and those teams are just clawing back. Rangers clawed back to tie it up 3-3. They're going to a Game 7, which is going to be Wednesday night, and Montreal has brought it back to 3-2. So that's, who knows what's going to happen. The Rangers were the team that was in the Stanley Cup final last year. They've got the experience at this point to Ovechkin, but Ovechkin is a great player, and he guaranteed a victory in Game 7. The Tampa Bay has been, one game looked great, one game looked terrible. Same thing with Montreal. So you don't know who's gonna go there. If I am a guy that's a betting man, I'm going to bet it's going to be Tampa Bay and the Rangers playing in the Eastern Conference final. And I'm guessing it's going to be Blackhawks Rangers in the Stanley Cup final, which will be nice, original 6 matchup. But like I said, there's really not much to talk about with this series because the Blackhawks have been sitting so long. The Ducks are a really good team. They've only lost 1 game so far in the playoffs. They swept Winnipeg. They nearly swept Calgary. But they are 2 teams, and they're going and matching up pretty well. Ducks are fast. They got a good goalie. They're able to score any which way. The Hawks are going to have to play really well, and they're going to have to. They're going to be the road dogs in this series because Anaheim finished with a much better record than the Hawks. So it's going to be an uphill battle, but I definitely think it's one that the Hawks can win. Let's quickly shift gears to the Chicago Bears. Vic Fangio finally addressing the Bears media and Chicago media. And he said a couple of interesting things. One, he talked about the rebirth of Jared Allen. And that's something that a few people have mentioned previously, is that they think that he can resurrect at least somewhat Jared Allen's career. And if you remember when the Bears brought in Jared Allen, I said that he was very effective in spots with Minnesota. And I thought that if they used him less than they did in Minnesota and just put him in key situations where he didn't have to go against the run, they put him in passing downs, limited his snap count, that he was going to be effective. But he did have the battle with pneumonia, lost a bunch of weight, took him a while to get back, and he was still, him and Willie Young were the two best. Stephen Paya played well too. He was still one of the better Bears defensemen last year, and that wasn't saying much. But again, like I said, is Fangio is a much better defensive coordinator than Mel Tucker. Absolute. There's no arguing that. And he is going to put Jared Allen in a much better spot. Jared Allen, when he left Minnesota, said he was a 4-3 defensive end. That's what he's been his whole career. He's not switching to linebacker, and he would retire before he did that. And now, after speaking with Fangio, he's excited about going and playing this new position. And the reason for it is he knows what Vic Fangio is going to bring. He knows what John Fox brings. He knows that these guys are going to be straight shooters and say, listen, this is what we're trying to do, and this is where you are going to play a part. So Jared Allen's not feeling like he is a guy that's an old guy that has to learn a new trick, and they don't really want him to learn the new trick. This is a team that says, listen, we're going to call you something different, and you're going to have some slight different responsibilities, but we are going to utilize you better. We see what, at your age, what your talents still are, and we're going to put you in the best position to make plays. That's where this defensive staff is going to improve the Bears. A lot of people are really upset that the Bears didn't make a lot of draft picks with the defense. And there are still needs for the Bears on this defense. But the biggest thing that the Bears did to overhaul this defense is brought in a new coaching staff. Is Mark Trestman hands off on the defense. Mel Tucker was the end-all be-all as far as the defense, and Mel Tucker was terrible. So you bring in John Fox, who is already a better defensive coach than Mel Tucker, and you bring in Vic Fangio, who is a good defensive coordinator. So right away, they're already saying by not addressing more of the defensive needs and the holes that they have, by saying, we feel, and they're almost outright saying it is, we feel there's already enough talent on this team from last year where we are going to make this defense better is by being much better coaches with better experience and better understanding of defense than they had the previous 2 years. And I absolutely agree with that. I said up and down all last season that it's not as big a talent deficit. I mean, there's clearly a talent deficit, but it's a coaching deficit way more than it's a talent deficit on this team. I felt that there was talent that was being well underutilized, and this new coaching staff perfectly agrees with that. There's players that they like, there's players that they don't like, and they're going to bring in their own guys. But overall, this defense is going to be mostly overhauled by better coaching and putting guys in better positions to utilize their strengths. And I completely agree with that. Sure, we're switching to some sort of hybrid 3-4 defense, but you're going to see a lot of similar to what you saw in older versions of the Bears. You're going to see aggressive cornerbacks. You're going to see the safeties harder hitting. You're going to see a lot more pressure by the defensive line. You're not going to see players out of position. That was a big problem with the Bears. You're not going to be giving up 75-yard touchdown passes to Jordy Nelson because Aaron Rodgers knows the defense better than the cornerback. You're not going to have that crap. There's going to be accountability on this team. Guys are going to be prepared when they put that uniform on Sunday. That's where the difference is going to be. I took a quick look at the 53-man roster, and as of today, there was a couple new moves. is Kasim Green, who's been a linebacker for us for the past 2 years. Gone, cut. And that was something I talked with Lester from Windy City Gridiron about a little bit today. And this is something everybody should have seen coming. Kasim Green is not good. Kasim Green, his only place in this league is a special teamer. And then I chatted with Dan Durkin from CBS Sports a little bit about this today, and he was saying that he just doesn't have the chops to be a everyday linebacker. He's a special teamer, and that's it. And that's fully true. And I think I've said it before that Kasim Green is not going to be on this roster, and he did not even make it to training camp. They got rid of him. And they got rid of Austin Lane, who they brought over from Detroit. Got rid of those two guys, and they signed a quarterback, Pat Devlin. They brought in Chris Pantale, the tight end from the Jets, who was cut, and defensive tackle Terry Williams, and outside linebacker Kyle Wostman. So those are the couple of roster moves. Nothing big, nothing that warrants too much talk about. But I went through and I listed all of the players that are under contract with the Bears so far, and I think I mentioned this before that there's a lot of depth at some of these positions, and there's going to be some notable names that are cut. I just did this is a very, very rough, they haven't even finished OTAs, but let alone gone to camp yet. And I sort of made my rough 53-man roster and sort of looked at what the Bears still need after this 53-man roster. I think they're only going to carry, let's start with special teams because that's easy. Robbie Gould, kicker, Pat O'Donnell, punter. For shits and giggles, let's say Thomas Gafford is the long snapper. I don't know who's going to win the long snapper battle. I don't care. I'm just going to say Thomas Gafford. Quarterback, I think they're only going to carry 2 quarterbacks on the roster. They have 5 under contract right now: Jimmy Clausen, Jay Cutler, David Fales, Shane Carden, and Pat Devlin. I only think they're going to carry 2. I think they're going to put a third one on the practice squad because David Fales got no playing time last year. Shane Carden is an undrafted rookie, and Pat Devlin has just floated around for 1 year in the league. There's really no need to bring one of these guys in. Let them sit on the practice squad. Let them learn the ropes that way. I don't see anybody else grabbing one of those guys and putting them on the active roster. So I don't think there's much of a worry about that because nobody's ever seen them play. So quarterbacks, I think it's going to be Cutler, Clausen. Tight ends, this one's going to be a little more tricky because you've got quite a number of tight ends on the roster. You've got Blake Annan, Martellus Bennett, Jacob Maxwell, Zach Miller, Bear Pasco, Dante Rosario, Brian Vogler, and Chris Pantale that they brought in today. I only think they're going to carry 3 tight ends. And who knows what's going to happen with Martellus Bennett because he's wanting a new contract. New contract, even though he's halfway through his old one. It's ridiculous, and the Bears aren't going to do it. Do they trade him? I think that's a little silly at this point because you need while you're working in a rookie wide receiver, I think you need, think you're going to need to have, more experienced tight end in there. Especially one that's very durable. So I think it's going to be Martellus Bennett. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Zach Miller. He was looking phenomenal in the preseason last year for the Bears, but he is so often injured. So don't be surprised if he doesn't make it. That one's an iffy one. And I think Bear Pasco. I think they brought in that guy for a reason. Dante Rosario is a guy that I don't think that they're going to keep around. Everybody else, I think, is going to be out the door. So there's actually there's a good number of tight ends that are on the roster. So I think everybody else gets sent packing, Dante Rosario being the most notable. I think they're going to carry 4 running backs. Matt Forte is a given. Jeremy Langford, you just spent a draft pick on him. He's a given. You just brought in Jaquiz Rogers. I think he's a given. That leaves one extra spot for Kadeem Carey and Sonoris Perry. And Sonoris Perry is a guy who can play special teams, and he showed what he's worth in special teams, and he can return kicks if you need it. I think it's going to be his job to lose. Kadeem Carey is a guy that has a little bit of baggage coming into the league, and he was drafted by the last regime, and they redrafted his position. I don't see Kadeem Carey making it on this roster. So I think Kadeem Carey goes. Offensive line. This one is a little tricky because it all depends on if they're going to move Kyle Long to be a tackle or if they're going to leave him at guard. That's really going to change the dynamic of who you keep on the roster. So I picked a little bit more versatile guys, and this one is where I think it's going to be really up in the air. Jermon Bushrod on the team, Matt Slauson on the team, Hronis Grasu on the team, Kyle Long on the team, Jordan Mills on the team. I think they're going to carry 9 offensive linemen, so that's going to leave 4 spots left. And so I have Will Montgomery, because I think he's going to end up starting the season, and I think Hronis Grasu is going to, by the bye week, I think he's going to be the starter. But I'm going to have Will Montgomery, Ryan Groy, Charles Leno, and Michael Ola. I think that's going to be your offensive lineman. I think Teo Fabeluge is going to be a guy that they carry on the taxi squad because he has his weight issues. I think he's actually going to have a shot making the team if he has the weight issues under control, because he's a big fat slob right now. And they feel like if he can keep that weight down, he's actually going to be somebody that has a chance. So Connor Buffelli, gone. The Vladimir Dukas, gone. Jason Weaver, gone. Cam Jefferson, gone. Chad Hamilton, gone. Now on to the wide receivers. And before we start, I was at the NFL draft, as you guys know, and there was a booth in Draft Town for Oyo Sports. It's OYO Sports. And they had these little toys already of Kevin White. This was Saturday. Saturday they had, I don't know if they had them Friday. I didn't go to the draft on Friday. But on Saturday, they definitely had an action figure of Kevin White in a Chicago Bears uniform. They had the packaging all printed and everything. And I was speaking to the guys, and this was pretty crazy. That these toys think about them like Lego figures. They're compatible with Lego. And it comes with one figure. It's got the little piece that's the base for the figure to stand on. And in his hands, he holds a football in one hand and a water bottle in the next. And then he comes with the actual figure, which has the Bears uniform already. And it's got his, not even joking you, I'll post pictures on the website. Go to swerskisports.com, SWERSKI sports.com, and I'll have pictures on there. But he's got the actual Kevin White jersey. It's clearly they didn't give him his number 13 until this past week. So they have him with the number 1. That was the number that they gave him on the jersey when he was drafted. But it's got his number 1 jersey, Kevin White, and it's got the Bears helmet, or you can also interchange it and put on a baseball hat with the NFL draft logo on there. And they had several different Bears players. The guys gave me a free copy of the Brandon Marshall one because, he's no longer a Bear. But it's cool. It comes in a little hard case. It's officially licensed by the NFL. It's got the Bears logo on there, and you can get several different Bears players. It's a really neat. You can definitely check these out. I think it was a couple dollars for each one. They're compatible with Lego, so if you guys have little kids, you can put it right in with their Lego figures and put them right on the building blocks. They're compatible. you can go to oyosports.com, OYOsports.com, and check them out. They've got Blackhawks, they've got Cubs, they've got Bears. I didn't check. I'm imagining they have Bulls and White Sox as well. But these are kind of neat. My daughter is not quite old enough for Legos, but when she is, I'm going to definitely pick up a bunch of the Bears and the Blackhawks for her, so she can learn right from wrong. So check those out. They were really cool. I like these things a lot. I'm going to put this one on my desk at work. But back to the makings of a 53-man roster. So we've gone through special teams. We've gone through offense. Sorry. We didn't go through the wide receivers. I think the Bears are keeping 6 wide receivers. I'm going to go with Kevin White, clearly. Alshon Jeffrey, clearly. Eddie Royal, clearly. Those are your top 3. I still think I really like Marquise Wilson. I mean, he's not going to be a number 1 in this league. He's not going to be number 2, but he's a guy, if he's your number 4 wide receiver, if he stays healthy, I think you're going to have a heck of a wide receiver core. So Marquise Wilson, your number 4. And then I put Mark Mariani there just because he was clearly the best punt returner the Bears had last year. And I think he's going to get first crack at returning punts and kicks again this year. So you put him in there. I don't think he plays much at wide receiver, but you have him on your roster. So Mark Mariani, and I think Josh Bellamy, which means John Childs, Rashad Lawrence, Cam Meredith, and Levi Norwood get cut. I think that was a much easier decision as far as wide receivers. Moving to the defense, I think they carry 10 defensive backs. I'm going to break it down with 6 corners, 4 safeties. So cornerbacks, I have Alan Ball. You just paid him $3 million. He's going to make this roster. Kyle Fuller, he was your number 1 pick last year, and Vic Fangio loves Kyle Fuller. He said Kyle Fuller is a guy that you can build this defense around. So that's a good thing. He really likes Kyle Fuller, and I like Kyle Fuller as well. As long as he doesn't get injured like he did last year, he's going to be a hell of a cornerback. Tim Jennings is going to make the roster. And then I think it's going to be DeMontre Hurst, Al Lewis-Jean, and Sherrick McManus. A little bit weak on your cornerbacks. I think you're going to need to upgrade that sooner rather than later, but that's what they have going into the season. And then in your safeties, I think they carry 4. Ryan Mundy, Antrell Roll, I believe are your starters. Even though Ryan Mundy had his hiccups last year, and Antrell Roll wasn't that great last year for the Giants. Let's hope that there was a hiccup and an anomaly rather than declining older player. But Ryan Mundy, Antrell Roll are your starters. Brock Vereen and Adrian Amos are your next 2. So those are your 4 safeties, which means Malcolm Bronson gone, and Anthony Jefferson gone. Really an easy choice on this one too. You don't have a lot of safeties. Defensive line. Let's go linebackers. I'm going to break this into outside linebackers versus inside linebackers because they're playing a 3-4, so it's not your traditional linebacker pool. You're going to have, I think they're going to carry 4 inside linebackers, and it's Mason Foster, Shea McClellan, John Bostic, and Christian Jones. I think those are your 4. Which means you're getting rid of D.D. Lattimore. You already got rid of Kasim Green. So you're losing out on those guys. Then defensive tackle, I think they carry 2 defensive tackles because some of these guys are going to be versatile, and you're going to be able to move them into defensive tackle or the 5 technique or maybe even outside linebacker, depending on the guy. But your pure defensive tackles, I'm going Jeremiah Ratliff, Eddie Goldman. I think those are your 2. Your defensive ends, your 3-4 defensive ends, you've got Jarvis Jenkins and Ray McDonald. Ray McDonald is a guarantee. I have Lamar Houston listed as a defensive end. I don't care that people keep saying he's an outside linebacker. I think he's much better as a defensive end. So I have Lamar Houston there. I have Ego Ferguson there. Even though he's played defensive tackle last year, I don't think he's enough of a run stopper to be a real 3-4 defensive tackle. I said that during my draft analysis during last year's draft is Ego Ferguson is too slow to pass rush, and I think he gets moved out, can't take on the double teams. So I don't really have him much as a defensive tackle. I think he's going to be a 5 technique. And I have Brandon Dunn at the 5 technique. And then your outside linebackers, Pernell McPhee, Jared Allen, Sam Acho, David Bass, and Willie Young. So it was a little bit outside the box on that one, which means some of the notable guys that are not going to make the team, Kadeem Carey, Dante Rosario, Kasim Green. I called that one. I wrote this a couple days ago. Cornelius Washington, Austin Lane, who got cut today. I called that one. I wrote this a few days ago. And Willie Sutton. So I think that's going to be a roster that ends up with exactly 53 men. I think it's 26 offense, 24 defense, and 3 special teams. We'll have more going through OTAs as they bring in new guys. If they cut people early, once they go into training camp, I'll be at training camp giving you guys updates, taking pictures. But that's about it for the Bears right now. And I'm just going to briefly talk about Cubs and Sox. I'm tired, and I bought some ice cream. I don't really want to eat it. And wrapping up the show is what's keeping me from eating ice cream. So the Cubs. A lot of people are like, oh, the Cubs are floundering. The Cubs aren't playing well. Looking at the beginning of the season, you asked any baseball expert what they thought the Cubs were going to do, and they thought they were going to hover around 500 and compete for one of the 2 wild card spots, probably the second one. And where are they at now? They're 500. They are second place in the division, clearly behind the class of the league, possibly the best team in the league, the Cardinals. They came out hot. They've floundered a little bit. I think that they're not as good as they were in the beginning of the season. They're not as bad as they are playing right now. They're somewhere in the middle. They're a 500 team. I think that's where they're going to be at. Maybe they finish a couple games over even. That would be a big accomplishment if you finish with a winning record. But the problem right now is the Cubs are facing is the starters are not going deep enough into the game. They're going 6 innings, which means you have every day 3 innings that you have to eat up with your bullpen. And that's if they go 6. You're taxing that bullpen. I mean, at this point, the Cubs might have to trade one of their catchers because they need an extra arm in the bullpen. They're really missing Neil Ramirez. That's clear. You have Hector Rondon who's struggling. You've got bullpen that's just worn out. The starters are just not going deep enough, and it's really frustrating when the starters aren't even going 100 pitches and they're pulling them out. Jason Hamill the other day was pitching well, and they pulled him out after I think he pitched 7 innings, and they didn't let him come out for the 8th, even though he was pitching fine, only had 91 pitches. And Madden's argument was, well, if he lets that first guy on base, then we're going to have to bring in somebody else with runners on. Who cares? It's like you've got to let some of these starters eat the innings. Let them go 100 pitches. I mean, 10 years ago, you were letting guys throw 125 pitches, and now you're not even letting them get to 100. So it's really frustrating because you don't know what you can't fix sore arms. I mean, the only thing you can do is give these guys a break. And if your starters aren't going at least 7 innings, that's what you're going to get. Is just these taxed arms. And Joe Madden clearly addressed that, saying, well, this stuff evens itself out. You have games where they pitch a little more, or weeks they pitch a little more, and weeks they pitch a little less. And that's neither here nor there because I'm not actually seeing that right now. I'm just seeing a little over a month into the season, you've already got a bullpen that's arms are falling off. Next thing I want to talk about is we got Anthony Rizzo. He's a legitimate MVP candidate right now. I mean, he was a really good player, and if you compared his stats with Jose Abreu on the White Sox at first base, you have a toss-up. There's going to be players in our teams that would take Rizzo over Abreu. I think as a pure hitter, Abreu is better, but Rizzo is clearly a better first baseman, and he's younger. Both on team-friendly deals. But this year, Rizzo is batting .330 with a ridiculous .450 on-base percentage. His home run numbers are down. He's got 18 RBIs, but he just looks like a different guy up there. I mean, we saw the flashes of it last year, and he had a really good year last year. But what he's bringing to the team this year, it's great. He's very patient at the plate. He's taking what he's given him. He's not forcing anything. And if they're going to walk him, he doesn't care. He's got 16 walks already on the season. That's great. He's on pace for almost 100 walks. So I guess 30 games in, half, so like 88 walks. That's a good number of walks. If they have a double, he takes a double. He's got 7 doubles on the year. He just looks like a very comfortable hitter out there, and I think it's a little of which came first, the chicken or the egg. Is you've got better bats around him. Castro's playing well. Soler is playing well. Bryant is playing well. You've got bats around him. You can't pitch around him this year. You got to pitch to him. So I think he's actually, if this keeps up, he's a legitimate MVP candidate. And there's a certain guy that plays for Washington Nationals that's just crushing the ball. That's, if the season ended today, would be the MVP. But Rizzo is definitely a guy that's got to be considered. And I think, at this point, he's got to be a top 5 guy. Like I said earlier, there is still a talent gap with the Arizona Cardinals. Still got football in my brain. There's still a talent gap with the Cubs and the Cardinals, and the Cardinals are the class of baseball. They're a really good team. They don't have really any holes. They score a lot of runs. They've got good pitching. They're just a hell of a team, and they're a difficult team to beat. And you're gonna have to keep working every year to get these guys better and keep chipping away, because the Cardinals know you're coming, and the Cardinals' time will come. But but right now it's still the Cardinals' division to win. I'm sorry, I'm spacing a little bit. I have the Cubs Gamecast going on while I'm doing this, and Lester is pitching a shutout so far, and Chris Bryant hit a second home run of his career to help give the Cubs a 3-0 lead over the Metropolitans. But that's not what I was meaning to talk about. So as it stands right now, the Cardinals are in first place. The Cubs are in second with a .500 record, and the Cardinals are just tearing through teams. They're 22-9. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's them, the Dodgers, the Mets are falling back to earth. Those are the class of baseball. And if you look at the the wild card, is the Cubs are right there for competition in the wild card. They're only half game out. They win today, and they're right there in the hunt for the wild card. And granted, we're only 12% through the season. 13%, 14%, somewhere around there. There's still a lot of baseball left to go. But still, I mean, it's nice to see the Cubs have a winning attitude, and they're showing what they can do. But the Cubs, like I said, they have the tax bullpen, and the back of the rotation is not pitching well. So hopefully, they can take some of these guys, and they've got Tyoshi Wada in Iowa who's pitching well. Neil Ramirez is close to coming back. I mean, there's still always the possibility that the Cubs trade for Cole Hamels. They're hot to trot for him, and you're starting to see who's going to be your haves and have-nots as far as your farm system. Is there going to be room for Javi Baez or an Albert Almora going forward? So does that make one of those guys dispensable? So maybe you start, now that you see who's on the roster, you start to make a package and appeal to the Phillies to get Cole Hamels. You put Cole Hamels on their team, suddenly your top three of your rotation is John Lester, Cole Hamels, and Jake Arrieta. That's pretty formidable. That also moves one guy out from the bottom of the bullpen, where you have Kyle Hendricks struggling a little bit. But you got Jason Hammel who's pitching well, and maybe Travis Wood then, maybe Tyoshi Wada, maybe who knows. But that suddenly makes it a very formidable rotation, especially come late in the season when you start going to a three-man rotation, where who do you get a break from? You get Lester, Cole Hamels, and Jake Arrieta. You got three studs pitching every night. And I guess that's about it. Sorry, I'm a little in a daze. I'm tired. My wife has been out of town all week with the baby, so I'm not... You'd think that I would be sleeping better because I don't have a 6-month-old in the house, but I miss them a lot, so it's I don't sleep well. I'm a little tired. So I'm going to wrap this up. Next week, I'm hoping to have a little bit better show. I'm sorry, guys. But make sure to check out our sponsors, the Rockford Ice Hogs. Check them out at icehogs.com. Go to audibletrial.com/Swerski Sports. And also, these are very cool toys. I really like them a lot. So check out oyosports.com. It's OYOsports.com. And I will have I'll have some pictures up on the site so you can check those out. Thanks for listening. Go to swerskisports.com, Twitter at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com Swerski Sports, and make sure you guys are subscribing. Go to iTunes or Stitcher, however you guys are listening. Click on subscribe, and that way you will get the show every week without having to download it on your own. So thanks a lot for listening, and until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her, you can have her, she's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van, and she looks like...
Remember, New Yorkers, smoking crack is not legal on planes. Bears 31 to -7. The Bears!
Oh, when the Bears go bearing down